There's no camera.
Who's there? We'll see if that. See your dad.
Okay, you're good.
Okay. All right, we're going to get started. Thank you all for coming this morning to this really exciting day. A PhD is a long time in the making, and with this one, Kyle is the first PhD student for me, so this is actually a really exciting day for me, and I'm probably more nervous than Kyle is. But this is also a very interesting, exciting day because we're doing something a little bit different. Nothing could be straightforward and fit into a box with Kyle. So in light of the work that he's done, that's being participatory with the community, we're actually broadcasting live to the community of Powassan. So a shout out to all of the community members who are there at the arena. I believe, at the arena. So they are able to see us. We won't be able to see them, but they are able to comment, and if they've got questions or things that they want, Rob is going to facilitate that after Kyle does his presentation. So Kyle will do a presentation for about half an hour, and then we'll be able to open the floor and the streaming to some questions before we have our examination. So without further ado, I will leave it to you.
Thanks. Okay. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming out today to share this. I'm really excited to talk about the stuff I've been doing for the past few years, and I'm really excited to have a few people streaming in. It looks, by the thing, there's seven different people streamed in, so that's kind of cool. It'll be cool to see who that was and who's checked in. I just want to start with some acknowledgements and just thanking everyone that's kind of supported me in this project along the way. So everyone here at Western, everyone back in Powassan, and everyone kind of in between who've done different things, whether it's supporting me specifically or for the project. This stuff couldn't have come together without the help of a lot of people who really pulled together for this. So just a brief outline of what I'd like to go through today. Take you through a bit of context in the approach that we used, and then talk about each of the three big takeaways that are in the thesis document. And since we have people tuned in online, I want to leave lots of time at the end so we can get some comments from different people and hopefully have a bit of discussion about that as well. So just to start with background, I'm going to try to kind of keep this as tangible as possible, really make it try to make it a discussion. So to contextualize this whole project, we can talk about the kind of situation of sport and recreation in Canada. So there's been this trend towards kind of professionalization of the sport and recreation sectors. So with this professionalization means a move from these clubs being kind of kitchen table operations where it's a couple people around a table running a club in a community to more professional and structured organizations that are part of a bigger system that feeds right up through the national policy system. So with this, it creates both opportunities by freeing up resources and support for community groups, but also challenges because you need to know how to work within that system in order to access those resources and fit into how the system looks. Rural communities are also kind of in an interesting state of change as well. So as economies become more global and interconnected in different ways, economies in communities are changing a lot. So a lot of northern communities are very familiar with this when you have a logging town or a mining town, and the kind of quick ways that that economy can change, and that can have a lot of ramifications in the community. Also, in particular, with regard to transportation and technology, communities are becoming more connected in different ways. And then this has opportunities by, for example, being connected online, so we can stream this lecture and have this online anywhere. But also it creates challenges. So when it's easier for youth to leave the community, to go to school, to access other things, there's these broader trends of youth out migration where a lot of young people are leaving rural communities because it's easy to leave and easy to come back. They can't see them? Oh no. Let's try this again. Okay, yeah, I was. Okay, here we go. We should be good now. Sorry about that. Yeah, I got it now. We're fixed. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so we're kind of in this state where sport and recreation are becoming more professionalized, and rural communities are becoming more connected in different ways and changing as well. So for this project, we're going to talk about how we can study and define community. So what does community mean in this context? There's lots of different ways you can define community. So a common one that you may hear is kind of the geographical definition. So a community as a neighborhood or a town or village or municipality. Communities are also defined as a unit of identity. So I may belong to a cyclist community or a musician community. And that is less about maybe geographical space and more about interest or identities. For this project, we use kind of a broader definition of community. So defining it as a complex web of affect-laden relationships. So meaning it's a lot of relationships, not just one-on-one, but a web of relationships between different people that have meaning. Those relationships also mean something, so they can be positive, they can be negative, they can have different meanings for different people. And also having a shared set of values, norms, meanings, histories, or identity. So this is kind of a broader definition that encompasses these other definitions, so people can kind of articulate their definition of community within that, and we can look at what that means to them. So to give you a bit of a more context about the municipality itself, Powassan is a community of about 3,400 people. And it's located about 25 minutes south of North Bay and about an hour north of Muskoka. So historically, Powassan was set up based on forestry, so the logging around kind of the Algonquin Park area and its location on the railway, so you could get the logs out the river to the railway. And there's also a lot of agriculture in the area, and it's kind of important implications for tourism. So interestingly, it's located about 20 minutes from Corbeil or Callander, Ontario, where the Dion quintuplets were born in just before or during the Depression. And there's some really interesting work talking about the implications of this on how this area developed, because it brought a ton of tourism through the area at a time when people weren't spending excess money. And people still talk about that in the community, the way it influenced how things are. There's a really kind of thriving boat building business in town that always talks about people coming through to see the quintuplets and buying boats on their way. So it's kind of an interesting implication there. Currently, you could describe it as a bedroom or commuter community. Because they're so close to North Bay, there's lots of economic opportunities there. So people can live in Powassan but commute into North Bay daily for work, and also to access other services there. Another kind of important thing is that the community is fairly recently post-amalgamation. So in 2000. It's okay. Eject bad actors. I turned it up.
Okay, the question is, so in your quotes, someone talks about the 5 Powassan families. Did you find that influence people who were, either in a positive or negative way, actively involved in the program? Like, were they from these 5 families? Was it mostly outsiders? Was it a mix of everything?
So for the day camp program specifically, I think that was less of an issue, because what it was involved in very clearly, and this wasn't what we thought at the start again, but it emerged kind of after the first cycle, was it was a really important childcare option, because it was like a fraction of the cost of daycare. People were accessing that as an option for that, and we had lots of spaces. So it was much more kind of and that was something that was really it was discussed as something that was really needed in the community, was a not daycare option for childcare. So less in that program. But when you look at other activities, there's like family hockey tournaments where you have to be a member of a family to be on the team. And then there's the outlaw or in-law division. If you're not related, you play in that division instead. So in that example, it's much more clear how the kind of family structures play out, but not as much in the summer program, because it kind of became more of a childcare thing than it was a very important childcare option as well, and there was lots of space in the program, so it was less exclusive maybe based on those structures.
Sort of follow-up question to your point. So you said in the hockey tournament that it was families and not families. How does that play out when you have the amalgamation? Like, do other parts of not traditional Powassan participate in this argument?
So the two communities, there's a lot of overlap with regard to families. But both of the former towns have a family hockey tournament that they run. And there's quite a few overlap between the teams that play in them, but there's a few that will participate in one and not in the other. And that actually was discussed as an important like homecoming event. So lots of people come home for the weekend to play in the family hockey tournament. So it brought people in from a lot of places to kind of come back and play into those teams. But it's interesting because like a lot of people can kind of pick the team they want to play for, because you're related in different ways to different families. So you can, it's exclusive, but not exclusive if you're in the circles of families. Yeah, sure. Okay, sorry about that.
I had another question as well. So you talk about it as sport and recreation. Do you think that's a barrier to people's participation when you use the word sport?
Yeah. So the question is, saying sport and recreation, is that a barrier? Does that influence the way people perceive it? I think yes, in a lot of ways. The Recreation Committee defines it as recreation, but then the stuff that we accessed, it was a sport and recreation communities fund, but the funding was based on physical literacy training, which is a really important sport policy thing. Some of the groups in the Recreation Committee are sport clubs, and other are recreation clubs. And I think some of the competitive sport people would also want to have sport there as well. But I do think the way things are communicated makes a big difference. An example of this as well, we ran that coach training and actually had a really, really poor turnout. It was offered like free, and not many people at all really showed up, other than the people we kind of recruited through the program. And just in talking to people, part of it was expressed that maybe coach training isn't what people are interested in, because they don't see themselves as coaches involved in elite development, but kind of chaperones in a recreational program. And there was a difference to that. So it's definitely an issue. I think the kind of trend in the policy, there's now more links to sport and recreation as being together. And that might be a way we might think about it moving forward, an important way to bring them together.
So why was successful first aid courses then? Yes,
first aid courses were full. But it was also more applicable to people. Like we had hairdressers who were like, my shop's full of older people all the time, and I just want to know what to do if something happens. People who were said, like, I live up in the bush way far away and it would take forever for an ambulance to get to me, so I want to know. So I think that course resonated more with people than a coaching course. And that could have just been the way we advertised it as well, as a coach training opportunity. So.
Any other questions?
Yep. Any questions from people online? I don't know. The bad actors? Yeah, they haven't seen the presentation. That's so disappointing. Okay.
There's no other questions. Thank you very much.